Hey guys, welcome to Small Town Girl with Gwen Ford Falconberry. I am here today with Emily Waldorf, who, because of a life-threatening situation, ended up part of a lawsuit challenging the near total abortion ban in Arkansas. I think this is going to be a real special episode. I appreciate Emily being here. It's a very brave thing that she is doing, and very brave of her to be here and share her story with us. With that said, I want to just jump right in. Southern Loft believes that your home should reflect your unique personality. That's why they offer a wide variety of stylish furniture pieces that are perfect for any taste. Whether you're looking for a new sofa for your living room or a sleek dining table for your kitchen, they have just what you need. So when looking for that piece of furniture that reflects you, visit Southern Loft at 3155 North College in Fayetteville or call at 479-856-6100. So Emily, thank you for being here. I was so excited and thankful when you said that you were willing to talk to me, because what little I know about your story, I just think that it is, well, like I said in the introduction, I think it's very, very brave what you're doing, and I appreciate people who are willing to be vulnerable, by sharing the difficulties of the human experience, in hopes that it leads to understanding and connects us, as humans. And I think this is an issue that is exploited politically. And a lot of times the human beings and the human stories get lost in that. And so you have that story that you can tell. And I'm just very, very honored that you were willing to come here and to share it with us. So just to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? You were just telling me that you went to Ouachita. Did you grow up Southern Baptist like me? Tell us a little bit about your childhood and your growing up experience.
Yeah, for sure. I grew up in Arkadelphia, and went to Ouachita
Yes.
for undergraduate school. Grew up in a Southern Baptist home. Spent every Sunday and every Wednesday at church. It was a huge part of growing up for me.
Me too.
It was just a part of life.
Yes.
It was a part of our routine. And going to Ouachita as well. It's a small liberal arts college where we had to go to chapel every week.
Yes.
And I felt like I grew up with these values that were very helpful for helping me be molded into the person that I am today. And kind of what you were saying, just the human experience of feeling more connected with people and then having empathy towards others. I feel like those are some things that I was taught as a child.
So that really your Christian faith, the way that has played out in your life is being empathetic towards others and kind and inclusive, and me too. I mean, that's something we have in common that I didn't realize. And I think I told you I have some connection to Ouachita just from going there to church camp, and then went to Arkansas Girls State there. So, but I do know, kind of the prototype of a student who goes to Ouachita. Sarah Huckabee Sanders went there,
Yeah.
and I have some friends who graduated from there, and then some friends' kids who are there now. And it is a pretty, at least the picture that I think one gets of a typical student is a pretty devout Baptist, a pretty conservative minded, traditional value kind of a person. And that, you know, maybe not so much when I was growing up, but I feel like I'm quite a bit older than you. How old are you?
I turned 40 in January.
40. Okay, so I'm 54. I don't know, by the time you were in college, was it becoming, you know, like it is now, where like, you know, being Southern Baptist, being a Ouachita student also meant this like Republican political identity? Because I did not feel that way growing up, but I, as a kid, but then it's definitely become that way in my adult life. Was it like that for you?
I would say it wasn't. And to be honest, I wouldn't have ever really thought twice about it growing up. Just it was kind of more like, what are your values and how do you feel about humanity and, you know, caring for your neighbor.
Yes.
I tell people that one of the only things that I ever remember from school and from church is like the golden rule.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
treat others the way that you want to be treated. So that's kind of the mantra that I would go by is, you know, treat other people how you would want to be treated.
Right.
And I don't believe that that should be divided into Republican and Democrat.
Yes.
And I feel like most people feel that way too.
Yes. Yeah. I do too, or I hope so. Although, you know, I don't know how much you know about my story, but when it just became so crystal clear to me that, you know, that the Southern Baptist identity, or at least the, you know, evangelical identity, was very wrapped up in sort of these, you know, culture wars and these issues that really divide us, like abortion.
Right.
Was when I decided to run for office in 2020, and ran as a Democrat and didn't think anything of it, and then got a really rude awakening. You know, when I was growing up, it was not antithetical to being a Christian or being an evangelical to just vote for whichever party you thought was, whichever person you thought was best. It wasn't really like the party represented, you know, one thing or the other. But, you know, here I had been this, you know, Southern Baptist Sunday school teacher and piano player, and suddenly people were calling me, you know, baby killer, and it was very, it's saying I'd taken on the banner of Satan. So it was a very, I feel like looking back now, I was extremely naive to not realize it was like that. But you know, I lived in the bubble of my own experience.
Right. I think 100% what you just said. I was naive, and I was naive until I went through my experience last September.
So bring us up to speed, up to the point of your experience. So you went to school and got your doctorate at USC in California, which I think is so cool.
Oh, thank you.
Adventurous. And you met your husband out there,
Right.
who also has his doctorate and is a physical therapist, but is a Southern guy from Georgia.
Right.
And then you guys moved. Did you move here directly after graduate school?
No, we were out in California for a while. He tricked me into moving to Georgia for a year, so I moved there for a year.
Yeah.
And I was like, get me out of here. So then I tricked him into moving back out to California for a year. And we got engaged whenever we were out there. And again, we come back to family values. And it was kind of like, well, we can stay out here in California by ourselves. We got engaged at an older age compared to most people in Arkansas. I was 32 whenever we got married, and so it was kind of like we really wanted to be closer to home, closer to our family, because, you know, one thing I've learned is your family is not replaceable.
Right.
But most other things in your life are, and family is not replaceable. So coming back to Arkansas felt like coming home.
Yes.
I, of course, did not want to go back to Arkadelphia, unfortunately. It's just too small. I needed somewhere that had a little bit more diversity, opportunity, a medical system that I could work for.
Yes.
And also a place that was growing. So that's how we ended up in Fayetteville. It just felt like the right thing with my sister being here.
Yes.
My parents moved up here from Arkadelphia. My dad is about 5 hours away in Northeast Arkansas. So, I think as we age, we start to notice how important it is to have your kids around grandparents,
Yes.
around aunts and uncles. And I think that was our opportunity to come back here.
Well, that's exactly what I did too. When I graduated from high school, from Ozark High School in 1990, and I was away for 10 years. And then it was just kind of like there was a homing device. When I got ready to start my family, I knew that I wanted to be close to my mom and dad and my brother. I just had the one brother, and they were all still in my hometown. My brother had gone to college too, but he had moved straight back there. And we had just always had this vision, of living close by each other and raising our kids together. And we've been able to do that. I'm really grateful for it. We live on a ranch together, and our kids, run back and forth to each other's houses. Of course, they're all growing up now, but I totally get that. And so, and you said earlier, you told me your sister had a little boy, so you have a nephew, and that was when the grandparents made their way here. So you had your family here, and you came and joined them.
Right.
And what happened next?
So we moved here in 2017.
Okay.
And we got married in 2018.
Yeah.
And I got pregnant in 2019. I had my daughter in 2020 in the midst of COVID. I was an employee at the hospital, physical therapist in the ICU treating COVID patients or patients that had COVID. And I realized at that point in time, because, daycares were closed, I had to still go to work because I was an essential worker. I really depended on my parents to step up and take care of my daughter. And I was just very thankful that I was here to have the ability for them to be able to do that. And we wouldn't have been able to do that if we lived anywhere else. I probably would have had to quit my job so my husband could work, or vice versa,
Right.
to just support our family. So she is now 5. She's in kindergarten.
Yes.
And so it's just been wonderful. She's the best. We are a happy little family. We have a pet potbelly pig
Oh my goodness.
that lives inside.
Oh my goodness.
We've had her for about 10
One
years.
of my dreams. Yes. I have a little Boston Terrier with a smushed nose, and he runs around and sounds like a pig. I always think of him as I think of Boston Terriers and potbelly pigs as akin to each other somehow. Those
would
and
make
frogs
sense.
when I look. So I love potbelly pigs.
Yeah.
That's fun.
We just got an Aussie doodle about a month and a half ago.
Yes.
So I welcomed another little living being into our family, and I feel like that was me wanting a dog was a sign that, like, I'm healing a little bit more from all of the trauma that I've been through.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Then,
Yeah.
Tell us if you're ready to go into that. Tell us what happens. You have your little girl, and then how many years before you decided to have another one?
So in 2023, I got pregnant.
Okay.
And I was 9 weeks along when we had the first ultrasound, and there was no cardiac activity on that pregnancy. So I had to have a DNC at that point in time. So that was
Okay.
my second pregnancy.
Okay.
And then we tried for a year and
gosh.
got pregnant with B, who is the baby that I lost. And that was September of 2024, whenever everything went downhill during my second trimester.
So you didn't have a miscarriage, but you had a pregnancy. You thought I guess things were going well, and you go into your ultrasound at 9 weeks expecting to hear the heartbeat, and you've been through this once with your little girl, so it feels like things are going to be
100%.
good, and then there's no heartbeat.
Right. They call it a missed miscarriage.
Okay.
So,
My sister-in-law had this.
yeah. So that was pretty devastating.
Yes.
That was really, I mean, it's all been pretty devastating, but to go through a pregnancy the first time and everything was normal.
Yes.
Everything went as planned. And then to have a missed miscarriage for my second pregnancy, it was kind of like I just got hit in the face with, you know, things don't always end up right. So I went into the pregnancy in 2024 with a lot of fear and anxiety in general. And
probably hoping that was a fluke because you'd had your first healthy pregnancy and baby, and then you'd had this second bad experience, but hoping that's a fluke and you're going to be able to repeat the first. And you
Exactly.
When did you find out things were not going?
I was 17 weeks.
Oh gosh!
So
wow.
I went to extra OB appointments just for peace of mind. My doctor did extra ultrasounds on me, just because she knew how anxious I was about this third pregnancy and wanting to make sure everything was okay. And everything was until it wasn't. And I began to bleed on September 16th, just out of nowhere. That's whenever I went to the hospital at Washington Regional here in Fayetteville, where I was an employee and had been for almost 6 years. And they tried to turn me away initially because I wasn't yet 20 weeks pregnant whenever I showed up to labor and delivery triage. And I said, I'm having an obstetric emergency right now. I'm 17 weeks pregnant, and it feels like something is coming out of my cervix. And that's when they diagnosed me with cervical insufficiency and when they admitted me to the hospital. So that started the whole hospital stay.
Okay. So you're a medical professional. You know what's happening.
Yes.
You're scared and sad because you're afraid you're losing your baby.
Right.
And you go to this hospital where you work. Did you have, before you got pregnant and even like as you are going to the hospital, did you have any thoughts in your mind about, the ways that the laws had changed or any fears about that?
I had no idea.
Okay.
I had no idea. I had no idea that the abortion law in Arkansas would ever have an effect on me.
Wow.
Because in my mind, it was, I don't care. It doesn't bother me if you're going to have an abortion. I'm never going to have an abortion.
Right.
I'm never going to need an abortion. Right. But I'm not going to judge anybody else if they want to. I just never thought it would happen to me.
Right.
Which is one thing I want people to know is that this can happen. What happened to me can happen to anyone, regardless of why you're pregnant. Regardless of whether you want to be pregnant or you don't want to be pregnant. This can happen to your best friend, your cousin, your sister, your daughter.
I'm stunned right now because I'm remembering having a conversation when Roe v. Wade was overturned and the trigger law, came into effect here in Arkansas. And I have, a daughter who's 25, and then I have a daughter-in-law who's 25. And I remember us sitting around and talking about that. And I guess I was more like you. It never crossed my mind that would affect them. Or be on their minds. It was something I was sympathetic to others about, having heard, horror stories and known, that situations can happen, but I never thought about it being like on their minds or worrying them. And it was for both of them. They both said, this worries me, or it makes me think about, neither one of them are ready to have children yet. My son's still in dental school, and my daughter at the time was either, I don't remember exactly when it was, so she was either still in law school or just getting started in her career, and but they both want to have children down the road, and they're very healthy. Nama was healthy, and
Right.
I just didn't even think about it. And then they were both talking about, how scary it would be. And so I guess what I'm saying is they have thought of that already. And I get probably a lot of people their age, do more than maybe I certainly did. And especially you after having a healthy baby.
Yeah.
So you work there.
Yeah. One thing, Gwen, the last thing that I expected when I became pregnant in 2024 was to end up in the back of an ambulance alone, traveling 240 miles to Kansas City to receive fundamental reproductive care to save my life. That is the last thing I thought would happen.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
So you get to the hospital and they try to turn you away.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
I feel like I'm a pretty assertive person. Like, I wasn't going to let them just turn me away. So I felt very confused, first of all. The whole time I was there that morning, I felt very confused.
Yeah.
Because I get in there and they do an ultrasound on me, and I see my baby on the screen, and everything looked fine. To me, I'm not an ultrasound tech or an OBGYN, but then the hospitalist OB told me, "Do you see her sticking her foot down?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "That's your amniotic sac. It's ballooning out of your cervix," as she would dip her foot down into this ballooning looking shape and then pull her foot back up. And she said, "Your body's preparing to miscarry this pregnancy."
Oh, my goodness. And your husband's with you?
Yes.
I'm assuming. Okay. And so you insist, basically. I'm having, you called it a term that I can't remember, a medical term yet. I'm having an obstetric emergency or an event. And they do admit you.
They did. So when I got there that morning, it was around 7:30. The hospitalist OBGYN was there. My doctor came in around 8 o'clock, so my OBGYN came in, and nobody wanted to do a vaginal exam on me because of what they saw in the ultrasound, out of fear that they would puncture the amniotic sac or, break my water, basically. And so just so happened to be there was a maternal fetal medicine doctor there on Mondays.
Wow.
Comes up from Little Rock.
Wow.
That's the access of care that we have in Arkansas, is there aren't always these specialized physicians there to take care of women when they're having an emergency or when things aren't going as planned in a typical pregnancy. But he just happened to be there. So I had 3 OBGYNs.
That was a miracle. He was there at that time, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's the only one. So he did the exam on me, and he said, I can't really remember. So if I'm wrong, I was maybe 2 centimeters dilated already. And he told me that the likelihood of me staying pregnant was very low, and that they thought that I would miscarry very quickly based on how much the amniotic sac was coming out of my cervix. And there was no one at the hospital who had ever done a rescue cerclage. So that means where they go in and they basically put the amniotic sac back into your uterus, and then they close up your cervix.
Okay.
So there's risk involved with that, which I didn't know about until I was in the situation. But he just basically said, you're more likely to have an infection if we try to do this. You know, we can, number one, puncture your water will break. Or if we go and we put the amniotic sac back up into your uterus, there will be an infection.
Yes.
Most likely because it's not a sterile environment once your sac has been exposed. And that infection would be your baby. And you could experience sepsis, being admitted to the ICU, and then he even mentioned requiring a hysterectomy in order to save my life. And I was thinking, well, I don't want to do any of that.
Right.
But then on top of that, I would have to travel all the way to Little Rock, which is 3 hours from here, to even hope that I lasted that ride without a miscarriage.
Oh my God. I cannot imagine being faced with these kind of things as your body is doing this.
I was very dissociated. I was thinking, at that point in time, I still didn't understand that the law was getting in the way of my health care.
Right. It was just the whole experience is
Right.
difficult and traumatic without that.
Right.
And-
I was, at that point, I was thinking, well, I don't want to lose my baby.
Right.
And how is this happening? How is this happening? I had never heard of anybody having a medical emergency like this in their second trimester. You know, I got out of my first trimester and I
Yes.
thought, I am good. I have my anatomy ultrasound in 3 weeks.
Right.
Everything's going great.
I mean, when you sort of reach that milestone of the first trimester, you really feel like, oh, I've made it.
Right.
You know.
Because most miscarriages happen
Right.
before 12 weeks. So yeah, there was a lot going on in my head. I remember sitting there in this room full of 3 doctors, my husband sitting beside me, and my ears were just ringing. You know, whenever you're going through an unbelievable event or a traumatic event, it's kind of like you get tunnel vision a bit. And I just remember looking up on the ultrasound, feeling like I see my baby right there, but I'm going to lose her.
Yeah. So you're on this table, you see your baby on the ultrasound, and you realize you're going to lose her. That there's not really an option. Or you don't feel like there's really an option. You've just described there's like this, you know, they tell you we can take you to Little Rock, we can try to put the sac up in your uterus and feel and seal it, but it's just there'd be an infection. And
He also said the likelihood of the cerclage lasting until I was at 24 weeks, which is considered viability.
Yes.
He didn't think that the cerclage would even last that long if they did it.
And so basically there are no options other than you're going to lose your baby, and this reality is sinking in
Yes.
on you. And at this point, you don't even have the added layer of worrying about the legality of everything. You're just having the worst moment of your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody's nightmare. Any mother's nightmare.
100%.
And so what happened next?
I remember going up to the hospital room, and they had me on a labor and delivery plinth, basically. I wasn't even on an actual hospital bed the 5 days that I was at Washington Regional. And at first, you know, I was thinking, well, should I be in Trendelenburg, which is where your head is lower than your feet, like to try to like help gravity assist,
Yes.
and just kind of thinking of ways to not make this happen.
Yeah.
You know, because like my baby was healthy.
Yeah.
She was fine. It was like my body was just failing her. That's how I felt. And so I sat there.
Had the doctors or had anyone hinted? I mean, you said they didn't want to admit you. When that happened, did it click in your mind that had anything to do with the law?
No.
Do you think it did, or do you think it was just them? Because I know my sister-in-law had ended up having HELP syndrome, and when we first went, they didn't want to admit her either. It was like, you'll be okay. It was this and that. And she knew, I'm not okay. Like, there's something wrong, you know. And then, of course, once they started testing and paying attention, they could see. And she ended up having to have an emergency C-section. But was that what it was like? Or do you think they were thinking about the law already?
I think they probably were. Because in my situation, before Roe v. Wade was overturned, I think that they would have given me options and said, we can induce labor right now. Mm-hmm. But I think also, based off of what they saw on the ultrasound, they thought that I was going to miscarry quickly.
Yes.
I remember asking my OB, well, what would happen if I went back home and miscarried? I said, shoot it to me straight. Like, take the gloves off. Tell me what to do.
Yes.
Because I am a very strategic person and task-oriented, and I just wanted to know, like, just shoot it to me straight.
Right.
And she said, you would go home. You would go home with a hat to put in your toilet because you would most likely miscarry while you go to the bathroom. And I said, well, what would I do after that? You know, because you don't want the baby to fall in the toilet.
Right.
She said, after you deliver, you would have your husband cut the umbilical cord, and you would need to tie off the umbilical cord and come back to the hospital with a baby that wasn't alive and with basically scissors hanging out between my legs because you don't want the placenta to get pulled back up into your uterus. And I said, well, that doesn't really sound like anything I want to do.
No.
In my home.
Barbaric.
Or do in general.
Right.
It is barbaric. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I mean, honestly, hearing that story, it's just like, in my mind, there's like this dissonance. Like, this is not an option. Like, in 2026, these are the possibilities for a woman in this situation to handle this.
Right. When I have a 4-year-old at home, and just the trauma of that happening in your home, it's traumatic enough, right? It's traumatic enough to be losing a child, but to have to do it in such a barbaric way, I was like, I'm going to stay here.
Okay. Yes.
I want to stay here.
Right.
Like, I want to stay here where you guys are going to take care of me.
Right.
But that's not what ended up happening. So I was there for 4 days, Monday to Thursday. And as time was going by, they were saying the longer you're pregnant, the more likely you will become septic. You could get bacteremia in your bloodstream. They mentioned ICU, ventilator, and I thought, well, I don't want my coworkers wiping my butt on the ventilator. I mean, I know that's kind of...
No.
But also,
yes.
You know, I didn't want to be on a ventilator. I thought, well, surely things don't need to get to that.
So why were they waiting?
They were waiting for her heart to stop beating. They were waiting for my white blood cell count to go up, which would be a sign of infection. Or they were waiting for me to be induced naturally and have the miscarriage. So either her heart had to stop beating, I had to get sick, or it was like
and
my body needed...
And this is all because of the law?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
So I remember, which these are very unhelpful comments for people to make, but one of the OBGYNs told me, if this is maybe day 2 of me being there, because I was like, you guys told me I was going to miscarry in hours and I'm still here and nothing's happening. You're taking my blood to see if I have an infection. You're taking my temperature to see if I have an infection. I'm asking you for prophylactic antibiotics so I don't get sick, and you're refusing to give me those. You're doing a Doppler on me to check for a heartbeat every morning, and they don't find a heartbeat. So it's like they do the Doppler. I'm preparing for what's to, waiting for not my destiny, but my outcome.
Yes, yes.
And I don't hear a heartbeat, and I think that my baby has died. And then they have to confirm it with an ultrasound because they can't find a heartbeat. So then I see my baby, they have the sound on, and I hear her heartbeat. And it's just very traumatizing to be in that situation. I remember lying in the bed, and a physician came in to do the ultrasound on me, and she's sitting on the bed with me. And I'm lying in the bed looking up the ultrasound screen, and she said, "Oh, look, she's opening and closing her mouth." And I just thought, what? I just felt dehumanized at that point in time. Like, you're sitting there cooing over this baby while I'm experiencing the worst experience in my entire life. And that same doctor said to me, when I said, are you guys going to help me? Are you guys going to help induce labor? It's been 24 hours since I first got here. And she said, tell your friends to vote differently. And I thought, what? That was the first time whenever I was like, huh? Like, oh, wait, is this because of an abortion law?
Wow.
And still not thinking that I was even asking for an abortion. I didn't know that I was asking for an abortion until after I got home from Kansas City. Miss Waldorf asked for an induced abortion. I said, I didn't ask for an induced abortion. She said, that's the medical term for it. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, I wanted to be induced to save my life.
Right. Of course. That is what you wanted.
But the language and the stigma around it all is what, I was asking for an abortion. And that's whenever I was no longer naive. And I thought, wow, this is essential. No woman should ever have to travel out of state for essential health care that they need to stay alive, and they shouldn't have to go through all the trauma and the delay of care that I had to go to in order to receive care.
It's dystopian. Like, this is a dystopian tale. It's and what strikes me is you are a medical professional with a doctorate. Obviously very connected, very sophisticated, very not your average bear, going into the hospital with this situation.
Right. These people were my colleagues. The people at the hospital were my colleagues. And it was crazy to me how the subject was just being tiptoed around. Just like I asked my OB the first day, like, what would happen? I wanted someone to tell me. I wish that someone would have told me on Monday when I got admitted, Emily, we can't help you.
Yes.
You need to get out of here.
Yes.
You need to go to Kansas City now.
Right.
But instead, they let me sit there for 5 days.
Why? Why do you think they did that?
I don't know. Fear. The law is not clear. It is cruel, and it is dangerous. And people are very afraid.
What is the law?
That's a good question. I don't know what the law is exactly, But I do know, just from my experience, that Arkansas has a near total abortion ban.
Yes.
So
I mean, our governor brags about that like it's a good thing. I hear that terminology like we're the most pro-life
right.
state. And so that's a badge of honor to the powers that be in this state.
Arkansas valued my suffering over my safety.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to pro-life, I don't know what is pro-life about that. Like, let's let 2 people die instead of just 1.
And to be very clear, there was no hope. Like I'm imagining lying there and looking at that baby on that screen, and if there was anything you could have done to save that little life, you
I
just
would
done
have.
it.
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
But they're telling you there's no hope. Like, this is just going to play out. It's just a matter of time. But all the things that can happen in that time. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, if they had told you that and then said, there's no hope and we need to get that baby out of there, that would have been a horrific decision to have to make.
Right.
But it's a matter of getting sick and having your life be on the line,
Right. And a whole lot of trauma.
Yes.
A lot more trauma just sitting there and waiting and wondering, just I want to deliver this baby because I want to live, but I want this baby to live because I love my baby. It's like a very polarized, not polarized thought, but it's neither is good.
No.
Neither option is good. And just...
Meanwhile, you have your 4-year-old at home.
With my parents. And, she's wondering where I am. She came to visit me, and we met her in the courtyard, and my husband brought me down in a wheelchair because I was afraid of what might happen if I walked that far. And I just remember her being like, "Mommy, why do you have a needle in your hand? Are you okay? Why aren't you walking?" And it's just like, kids don't understand that. And I also don't want to traumatize my child by telling her, this baby that we were expecting is, you don't want to have to tell your child that, your 4-year-old.
It's so inhumane. It's so cruel to me to imagine that we have allowed we have chosen as humans to treat other human beings that way, the way that that's the law. Because we were trying to parse out the law, and of course it's not clear.
Right.
But basically, what matters about this is the law allowed for your situation. They were acting according to the law.
And it caused a delay of care. And I think that's really important for people to understand is I have, like you said, I'm educated. I have a very close-knit social circle. I thought that I had connections to the governor based off of where we went to school and her being a mom of 3 kids.
Yes.
Surely if I call the governor and ask for them to clarify the law for the hospital or to give me an exception to either be induced or to be transferred, that they would agree. But whenever we called the governor's office to ask for help, the only thing they told us was, "We can't help you. We recommend you get a legal representative, or we recommend just get an attorney." For what? At that point I was like, well, what do I need an attorney for? Why won't you guys? Okay, so my water broke on Thursday. So bleeding started Monday. I was passing blood clots the size of tennis balls on Monday night. thinking it was my baby dropping into a hat. Thursday, my water broke. 24 hours came and went. You know, when, from my perspective, because again, this is not my specialty, other women I've known, when their water breaks, they're going to induce you by 24 hours.
Right.
Because your risk of infection goes up so much more. I had a diagnosis called PPROM, which is premature rupture of your membranes, or your water breaking too early. And the mortality rate with that is really high if you go a long period of time without being induced. And I remember calling the governor and them saying that, and that was kind of like, oh my God, nobody's going to help me. Because after my water broke, the doctor said, I need to go talk with risk management to see what we need to do. And I thought, what? What does that mean? She came back in and she said, you have two options. Okay, what are my two options? My water broke. Like, surely I'm going to deliver this baby. And we asked, and she said, you can either stay here and continue to be observed, or you can go to Kansas. And I said, would the hospital transfer me to Kansas? And she said, no. And I said, well, how are we supposed to get there? You would get in a private vehicle with your husband and drive to Kansas. What sounded scary is, if you're familiar with, I mean, you're from Ozark, Arkansas, and Missouri.
Yes.
To get to Kansas City is very rural.
Yes.
There are no hospitals along the way. So the thought of driving 3.5 hours to Kansas City and me delivering in the car, being alone with my husband, hemorrhaging in a field, you know, all those thoughts kind of cross your mind. And I thought, well, that doesn't sound safe. I'm going to stay. So the 24 hours came and went. Nothing had happened. And that was after the call to the governor, where it was like, I got to get out of here. But remember, anybody who's in a medical emergency, being the patient, I was very not in a place to make any decisions other than just survive.
Yes.
And so my sister, my husband, my best friend Jameson, who you met earlier, she lived in Connecticut. She's the one that found my attorney for me, all the way from Connecticut. It took all of those connections in order for me to find somebody that was like, I'm going to get you out of here.
Strangers. This enrages me. It's just unthinkable. You know, one of the things you've said a couple times I wanted to go back to, because, you know, I think coming from the background I come from, I think people who consider abortion, you know, to be a sin and to be a murder of a baby, I think they hear language. I think I used to hear language like reproductive care, and think that it was kind of spin, you know, like political spin, like of course someone is getting reproductive care. That's different than an abortion. And even you had that in those two things differently in your mind.
100%.
You know, you were confident you were going to get the care you needed. It was just what made sense when you have no options. You know, I'm looking back and thinking of people I've known before this law who had abortions and didn't know it.
Exactly.
You know, because, you know, I have a friend who's, you know, who went in, I think it was 15 weeks, no heartbeat, and induced. That was an abortion.
Right.
And, you know.
It's just a different term.
Yeah, she didn't think of it that way, I'm sure, because she would have thought abortion was murder, was wrong, you know, and so I guess what's dawning on me is that term, that's what we're talking about here. We are just talking about reproductive care.
Right. We need to change the narrative.
Yes, we do.
Right? So it doesn't, I mean, abortion should not be Republican or Democrat, right? Keep abortion, reproductive care out of politics and in the decisions of the medical team and the patient.
Yes.
And that's the huge thing. We need to change the narrative of what abortion is. Granted, anybody who wants to have an abortion should be able to have one. They should be able to make the choice, regardless of the situation. I only have my story to tell, right? But I believe, like, nobody's going to want to have a second and third term abortion. Nobody. Usually that's for a reason.
Right.
Now, some people might want to make that decision, but it's nobody's business. It's nobody's business. And politics should not be in the way of someone receiving medical care. And I think that it's going to take, unfortunately, the more time we get from the more time that passes since Roe v. Wade was overturned, the more stories we're going to hear like mine. Now, I'm alive to be able to tell my story. Some women are not. Some women die.
Yes.
And how many of these stories do we not know about because they did die and they didn't have access or they didn't have the privilege. You know, some people are afraid to come forward and tell their stories because they're afraid something bad is going to happen to them. And I hope that my story encourages other women who have been in my situation or just needed an abortion to come forward, tell their stories, because people need to hear these stories.
Yes.
And one thing I thought about when you're talking about growing up in Arkadelphia, going to OBU, and thinking about abortion, I never really thought about it because I never heard about it.
Yeah.
But people need to start telling their stories because that's going to make us as a human collective feel more connected to each other and to understand that this is a human matter.
Right. Well, and when you're sitting here telling your story, you know, my hope, you know, is people who see you and who listen, it takes away this sort of ability to other people who have abortions. You know, in the culture wars, it's this type of person who is
100%.
not you. You know, 100%. It's this type of person who is who we can say someone. It's someone not like us who would decide to do that or who would need to do that. But when I'm sitting across from you, and I believe when people see you and can see themselves,
right?
You know,
I'm relatable.
Yes,
it's relatable, and I want people to know that nobody is immune.
That's right.
Just like in any healthcare crisis, nobody is immune to emergencies.
Yes.
Nobody is immune to something bad happening during your pregnancy. Nobody.
I mean, it would be like, I'm just thinking of all the reasons we go, you know, to the ER. You know, it would be like, you need insulin. We can't give it to you.
Right.
Till you get to a certain point, you know, the edge of death.
Right.
You know,
certainly there are objectives that we go by, right? Or measurements.
Yes.
Someone comes in and their blood sugar is not good, you're going to give them insulin.
Right.
Somebody comes in and they're dilated 2 centimeters and their amniotic sac is ballooning out of their cervix. Surely that's an objective measure. We're like, oh, we should give this person care.
Right. There's no way to save this baby.
Right.
Yeah. And the you know, I'm thinking I've been to the ER with my son when he was having an asthma attack. You got to do something right then.
Yeah. I almost died because of my delay of care.
Yeah.
Whenever I got to Kansas City, it had been Monday, Friday. I delivered on Saturday, so it had been 6 days. And I remember the OBGYNs doing the exact same exam that they did on me on Monday. They checked my cervix, and we were asking, what are the risks involved with me being induced? Will I hemorrhage? And I remember the doctor saying, you're already at risk of hemorrhaging because you have no amniotic fluid in your amniotic sac. So the risk of you hemorrhaging is high. And that's what happened. I hemorrhaged. Within minutes of me delivering my baby, the placenta wouldn't come out because there was no fluid in there. And I was busy dissociating, trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking me if I want to hold my baby, and I'm thinking, I'm about to pass out.
God.
And, working in the ICU before that, I knew blood loss, low blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually a sign that you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the alarms go off on the monitor. My blood pressure dropped to the 70s over 30s, and I was beginning to feel like I was going to pass out.
Yeah. Your life is just draining out of you.
Yeah. And I shouldn't have had to experience that, and I wouldn't have if someone would have looked at those parameters when I got to the hospital and said, we should treat her now.
You should not have had to experience any of this.
No.
So I want to. We're Thursday. You're still here, and you're weighing the decision to drive with your husband to Kansas City, and you're afraid to do that.
Right.
It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
How'd you make the decision to go? The lawyer helped?
Yes.
Okay,
so the call to the governor was on Friday. My friend Jameson got me in contact with Molly. I remember her texting me and being like, I have this attorney that's going to call you. Answer the phone. Because people know that I don't ever answer the phone. And
it's reasonable not to in this situation.
Right. So she called me and she said, my name is Molly Duane, and I help women in these situations. And I just thought, okay, you're going to help me? Sounds good. And she was like, I'm going to get you care. So initially she tried to convince the hospital that they needed to treat me. They said no. And then it was like, okay, well, you guys need to transfer her. The answer was no.
And is this, they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for doing any of this?
I don't know. You'd have to ask one of them what their reason was for not acting on, not helping me. Finally, by about 5 or 6 o'clock that night, probably 6 o'clock, they've agreed to transfer you.
Okay.
However, the hospital refused to find me a receiving hospital. They refused to find me a receiving maternal fetal medicine doctor, the person who had to admit me, and they refused to set up my ambulance transfer. My attorney did all of that. She did all of it. She was the only person that was going to help me. And I was just like, okay, somebody's going to help me.
Thank God for her.
I know. She's an angel.
Well,
for sure.
it reminds me of so many other situations in our society where the system is just failing. And,
right.
I'm thinking of, students I've had whose, immigrant husband or parent is being deported, and there's no one, there's no help, there's nothing to,
right.
And you do have these few pro bono or
right.
not,
yes.
attorneys who stand in the gap and
right.
and who have this network that they can call. It's like the Underground Railroad or something. I mean, it's crazy.
I had no idea about all of there is access in Arkansas for people to help you, but of course I didn't know what they were because it's not publicized,
right.
And I never thought that I would need
right.
support.
Right.
But there are places that support these situations in Arkansas. But like you said, you know, I didn't know what any of those options were, and I wasn't really in the position to be like doing research on social media to find out who was going to help me. You know.
Yes. Is that something we could tell our readers, my readers and our watchers and listeners? Is where those resources are available? Is it Planned Parenthood? Is that one place that helps, or?
You know, I'm not really sure about what they all are, but I think it's important for people to know their options. And I mean, of course, if anybody listens to my story and ever got in a bind, I would hope they would message me on social media and be like, hey, help.
Yes.
You know, I'm in a dire situation here.
Yes.
Can you help me? And I would love to put them in contact with all the resources that I
People
have.
Who helped you. Yes.
Yes.
And so, and earlier, like once they realize they're not going to be helped.
Right. And I hope that my story gets to enough Arkansans so that they are aware of it if they're in their pregnancy, because pregnancy in Arkansas is very scary.
Yes.
But you might not know that until you're in a scary situation. But I want people who are pregnant and not pregnant to hear my story, to know, okay, we know this will help. And like I told you earlier, if I can just help one person, then that's worth it to me. If I can save one person's life, then this whole thing is worth it to me. I mean, we're going to win this case, but I want to do it for someone else because I have my story, and I tell people, if not me, then who?
That's pro-life right there.
Yeah.
You're pro-life.
Yeah.
So your attorney sets this up, and you're transferred by ambulance?
Mm-hmm. Alone. I remember, so Amber Thurman's story came out while I was in the hospital. So Amber Thurman was a woman who passed away in Georgia because of the abortion ban in Georgia. And it was during the presidential campaign, and I remember someone telling me to not look at the news at all because there was this woman who had died because of the abortion ban in Georgia. And Kamala Harris just happened to be in Georgia the night that I was being transferred. I got on an ambulance at 10:30 at night to be transferred to Kansas City, and I listened to Kamala Harris talk about Amber Thurman, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is happening everywhere. We just didn't know. Mm-hmm. And it took me 3.5 hours in the back of an ambulance to wake up to bumps on the road, open my eyes, and see State Line Road in Kansas City and think, oh my God, I made it. Because I knew KUMC, the hospital that I went to, is right over State Line Road. And I was like you said, it felt like I had crossed over into a different country that was like, we're going to help you. I got there, the OBGYNs, I'll never forget. I mean, I walk in, well, I don't walk in. I'm taken in on a stretcher. They transfer me to the bed, and I just remember this team of women coming in. It was dark. It was 2 a.m., and they all had on bonnets. They all had on surgical scrubs, and it was all women. And they were like, we're so glad you made it. We've been waiting on you, and we're so glad you're here. And I just thought, oh, my God, like, you're going to help me? You know, like, oh, my God, okay, like, it took 5 days for me to get here, but you're going to help me. And it was just so eerie and, you know, felt very, it was one of the climaxes of my story. Like, it was like, okay, all right.
Like you stepped from one portal or something to like a
That's a good
one
way of putting it.
reality to another like from one world to another.
100%. Yeah. Night and day. And they treated me with such compassion. You know, the MFM doctor sat down, held my hand. They weren't talking over me. And, you know, I just felt like a human again. I felt like, okay, I'm a human. You're gonna treat me.
Yeah.
You're gonna keep me alive. I'm gonna lose this baby. You're gonna keep me alive. I just need to stay alive, and I need to get home.
And that's what they did.
Yeah, they did.
Did you hold her?
I did.
Yeah.
Whenever I first delivered, I just remember like not wanting to look at her because it was you know, that moment of reality, right? It's not a good feeling. And the nurse asked me if I wanted to hold her, and I said I can't right now. I was feeling, I mean, I was going through a physical experience of I've kept on feeling gushes coming out of me. And I was like, I need to like hold it together right here because I wasn't feeling well. And I just remember gushes. And I remember looking at the nurse. She would make me bridge up and she would take a Chuck's pad, you know, the things you put on a hospital bed. And there would just be a puddle of blood.
So much blood.
And she would take it and she would weigh it. And then she'd put another one under me. She'd take it out. She'd go weigh it. And I said, am I okay? And she said, you're losing a lot of blood, but you're going to be okay. And during those moments, the charge nurse came up to me and she said, your baby is still alive. Her heart is slowing down. Do you want to hold her? And I said, yes. So
you got to say goodbye.
yeah. That's like the part that is the hardest. I mean, after that, we still had to grieve.
Yes.
And they put a cold cot in my room, which is basically where your baby stays, to help them from, you know, decomposing. And so we got to spend, you know, a day with her.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. And, you know, as a person who loves my family and has always wanted to be here, you know, in Arkansas where they are, and, you know, has had, you know, I've had plenty of other options to be somewhere else, but I love Arkansas, you know, and it's home. But it just, imagining you looking for that state line
Yeah.
and really going from darkness to light, from going to from death to life, from hopelessness, you know, to hope.
Right. Abandonment also.
Yes, abandonment, just total abandonment from your own state, your
Right.
own home, your own government, your own people. To have to get out of here to be saved,
Right.
it just makes me so sick, and it makes me so ashamed.
No woman should have to travel outside of their zip code, outside of their state, in order to receive adequate care. And I mean, we're fortunate where we're located in Northwest Arkansas because of the accessibility that we have to places like Kansas City. Yeah, I think about those people down in South Arkansas. There's
Where would they go?
a lot, it's a lot further.
Yeah.
So, Emily, you've taken all this
Yeah.
this pain and this trauma,
Yeah, stop. Don't hold your thoughts.
and
Do it.
you're channeling it into this action of fighting this law. Talk to me a little bit about what that fight looks like and what outcome you're hoping for.
So whenever we filed at the end of January, I can't tell you how many responses I got. The amount of
Yeah.
like kindness from people I hadn't heard from in 20 years. There were boys from Washita battling trolls on the internet that I hadn't talked to since I was in college, taking up for me, saying things like, "This woman went to school with you. I'm glad she's alive. I hope nothing like this ever happens to your wife." You know,
Yes.
the amount of people that have my back and are supportive is just really, I didn't know what to expect, you know, because this is a very sensitive topic and we're in a very conservative state where people, you know, abortion is very stigmatized and it is seen as not good things. But I think that my story is different and I think it's relatable and it makes people understand that it can happen to them.
And more helpers came out of the woodwork.
Yes.
Yes.
And there are
I'm
helpers.
so glad, because that had to be, there has to be some healing in that, or some,
Right.
yeah.
The best outcome could be we totally strike down this abortion law. And it's complicated. It's very complicated. That is not my specialty.
Yeah.
Right? It's not my scope. But my goal is everyone should be able to receive reproductive health care, and abortion is reproductive health care,
Yeah.
regardless of the reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what can we do? What can normal people do? What's that look like? I mean, your physician said it. We can vote differently, but about this lawsuit that you're bringing, what's the process? Where is it right now?
That would be a question for Molly Dwayne,
Okay,
my attorney.
okay.
She's
She's the
She's the
doing
pro.
She's filing and
Yes.
battling and doing. Yes, okay.
And I mean, from a personal perspective, I would say the best thing would be the more voices that are heard, the stronger we will be, right?
Right.
It takes a small group of people to make a big change.
Yes.
But we have to speak out.
Yes.
We have to let go of fear. And people need to come forward.
Okay.
We need to let people know that I'm not alone.
Yes.
And we need to let others know that they're not alone.
Yes.
We have to come together.
So other women and
You
parents and husbands telling their stories. I mean, that's something I can do. Is you can email me, and I can help tell your story in my column or here. You know, we can. Emily says find her on social media and message her, and we can help with that.
And I think also amplifying my story in general, and also Teresa and Chelsea and the other plaintiffs, because I think we represent all parts of Arkansas.
Yes.
And we all represent different situations.
Okay.
So I think amplifying those stories,
Okay.
letting people know. I think people just don't know.
You know, this is, I don't even know if this is relatable at all. It does make me think of what we're trying to do. You know, I'm a plaintiff along with some others in a lawsuit against Learns. You fight it. You fight it at the ballot box. You fight it in the legislature, and then the judicial is there for another option. It's
Right.
like you're just throwing everything at the wall to try to get something to stick, and
Right.
that's and fighting it kind of on every front,
Right.
and hoping, that the different branches of government that works, for to be corrective and
Right.
to curb, one or two branches from
This is our
too
opportunity.
much power. Yeah.
This is Arkansas's opportunity to make a change.
Yes.
This is Arkansas's opportunity. Hopefully there are more opportunities, but I feel like this is the initiative.
Yes.
This is our chance to change Arkansas, to make us not one of the worst reproductive health care states in the country.
Yeah.
Like, we have to move forward.
Well, it's just appalling to me as a 54-year-old that my daughters, the decision to have a baby, they face being afraid of this happening to them. Like, that's real.
Right. Right. And it's still happening.
How can that be family values? How can that possibly encourage people to,
Yeah.
want to be mothers? Or, well, Emily, I'm in awe, really. I'm speechless. It didn't happen to me very much. Probably ought to happen more often. But thank you so much for taking this unthinkable tragedy and doing with it what you are, which is, you had no control over this happening to you.
No.
But you're such an example to me and to all of us of taking this unthinkable tragedy and choosing to use your voice and to use your sphere of influence and the power that you have to try to change it so that it doesn't happen to others, and to help people through it. You're the best of us in Arkansas. You make me proud to know that you're an Arkansan and that you're here fighting this fight. And I'm just so grateful and humbled and awed by your story and by your courage.
Thank
So-
you. It's a pleasure to be able to share it. And thank you for having me.
Well, that's Emily Waldorf. You can find her on social media and message her if you have a story to tell. And you can do the same with me, G. Falkenberry at Hotmail, or on social media, or at the paper. I agree with her. I would like for every story like hers to be told. And I would like to see us come together and fight this evil, because that's what it is. It's wrong, and it is shameful that this could happen in Arkansas, and is happening, and we can choose to do something about it. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.